In the top stories, Prime Minister Drew is calling for stronger Africa-Caribbean action to deepen cooperation and advance shared development goals. The CARICOM Private Sector Organization is launching a framework to track private sector response to non-communicable diseases across the Caribbean, and Nicolas Maduro is back in court today, challenging the United States' right to block his access to defense funding provided by the Venezuelan government. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Major Newscast. Today is Thursday, 26th March, and I am Jasmine Thomas. First, on the local scene, Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew has called for stronger, more deliberate action to deepen ties between Africa and the Caribbean. He made the appeal as he addressed the Afri-Caribbean Investment Summit in Abuja, Nigeria earlier today. Speaking under the theme Caribbean Perspectives on Unity and Prosperity, Dr. Drew emphasized that historical connections between the two regions must now translate into real opportunities for their people.
By 2100, in a mere 74 years, from this people where the origin of humanity came from, who were the most exploited on this planet Earth, 1 in every 3 persons on Earth will be African or African descent. It means, therefore, that as was said by Aisha, that Africa has risen, with people numbering over 2 billion by then, have all of the resources in terms of natural resources, land, arable land, rare earths, energy sources. It means that Africa has the opportunity to be the leaders on this globe in a mere 50 to 70 years. That is not a wish. That is what we must accomplish.
He positioned the St. Kitts and Nevis as a bridge between Africa and the Caribbean, pointing to expanded partnerships, stronger economic links, and greater South-South cooperation as key priorities. The Prime Minister said the moment demands courage and decisive action as both regions work to build a future rooted in shared prosperity and collaboration. He described the approach as a future-focused decision, one that may not yet be fully understood by all, but will in time be validated by history.
Some may not have understood why I was so determined to get them on a jet plane with me and come over here to Abuja, Nigeria. But for those who may not have understood, and even if they don't understand now, I still forgive them. For I understand that the move is bold and it's unapologetic. But I do recognize, as Bob Marley say, you must know who you are and where you stand in the struggle. My role in the struggle is to reunite and seek to reunite the West and the East. And therefore, the action of putting our vibrant, competent, intelligent, visionary citizens and young people of St. Kitts and Nevis on a transatlantic commercial flight back to the motherland.
Dr. Drew added that engagement with Africa is part of a broader effort to reconnect people linked by shared history and identity, while creating practical pathways for development and exchange. The summit, now in its second year, continues to serve as a platform for building partnerships and advancing a more connected Afri-Caribbean future. Civil servants gathered on Wednesday at Independence Square to learn more about the government's updated medical staff plan. This session formed part of ongoing efforts to educate public sector workers on the plan, which took effect on the 1st of December in 2025. The updated structure transitions from a combined base plan and major medical system to a single comprehensive major medical policy. Officials say the change is designed to simplify coverage while enhancing benefits for employees and their families. Representatives from the Human Resource Management Department were on hand to provide guidance, answer questions, and walk participants through the details of the new plan. A follow-up session will take place to continue engagement with public sector employees. Governor General Dame Marcella Liebert has received the credentials of Panama's non-resident ambassador to St. Christopher and Nevis. Ambassador Xiomara Perez presented her letters of credence during a ceremony on Wednesday, formally assuming her diplomatic role. Officials say the engagement signals a shared commitment to strengthening relations between St. Christopher and Nevis and Panama, particularly in the context of Caribbean and Latin American cooperation. Ambassador Perez, who is based in Barbados, also paid a courtesy call on Acting Prime Minister Dr. Jeffrey Hanley at the Office of the Prime Minister. Discussions focused on deepening diplomatic ties and identifying areas for expanded cooperation between the two countries. We now take a look at news on the regional scene. The CARICOM private sector organization CPSO has launched a new framework aimed at strengthening the region's response to non-communicable diseases, NCDs. The initiative, unveiled on the 24th of March, is designed to track and measure private sector efforts to reduce NCDs across the Caribbean. Non-communicable diseases account for nearly 80% of all deaths in the region, placing significant pressure on health systems and economic productivity. Officials say until now, there has been no standardized way to capture the private sector's contribution to addressing the crisis. The new framework will allow businesses to document their initiatives, measure results, and share best practices across member states. The CPSO says many companies are already investing in employee wellness programs, healthcare products, and community outreach, but much of that work has been fragmented and underreported. The organization is now encouraging wider adoption of the framework as a part of a coordinated regional approach to improving public health outcomes. And St. Lucia is moving closer to developing its geothermal energy sector with support from regional and international partners. The government is working with the OECS Commission to develop new legalization that will guide the exploration and use of geothermal energy. The support is being provided through the GeoBuild program, which is helping to build technical capacity and create a modern legal framework for the sector. As part of that process, consultants met with government officials, private sector representatives, and development partners during a series of stakeholder sessions in February. The discussions focused on how geothermal resources will be managed, how investment will be structured, and how the sector will be regulated. Officials also looked at how geothermal energy could support not just electricity generation, but also key areas such as tourism, agriculture, and industry. Project officials say the approach is intended to create broader economic opportunities while reducing dependence on imported fossil fuels. And now for a look at news on the international scene. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is back in a New York court today as he seeks to have drug trafficking charges against him dismissed. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, are challenging the case, arguing that U.S. sanctions are preventing them from using Venezuelan state funds to pay for their legal defense. His legal team says that limitation violates his right to choose his own counsel. Prosecutors, however, maintain that Maduro can use personal funds or seek court-appointed representation and that sanctioned government money should not be used. The former president and his wife have both pleaded not guilty to charges that include narco-terrorism and drug trafficking, which could carry life sentences if they are convicted. The case follows their capture by U.S. forces in Caracas earlier this year and comes amid changing political dynamics in Venezuela. The court is expected to consider key legal issues, including the funding dispute, as the case moves forward. Israel's military campaign in Lebanon is intensifying, with signs it could expand into a longer-term presence in the country's south. Israeli officials say they are considering the creation of a security zone along the border, extending as far as the Litani River. The plan is aimed at protecting northern Israeli communities from ongoing rocket attacks by Hezbollah. Defense Minister Israel Katz says troops would clear areas used by militants and prevent residents from returning until security conditions are met. The approach, he says, would mirror operations carried out in Gaza, where large areas were heavily damaged by the current conflict. The escalation comes as fighting between Israel and Hezbollah continues, with airstrikes across Lebanon, killing more than 1,000 people and displacing over 1 million others. Israel has also warned civilians to evacuate large areas of southern Lebanon as ground operations expand. The developments are raising concerns about the possibility of a prolonged military presence and further humanitarian impact in the region. We now take a look at the weather. Weather conditions across St. Kitts and Nevis are partly cloudy, with a moderate chance of brief showers throughout the day. Temperatures are expected to reach a high of 31 degrees Celsius or 88 degrees Fahrenheit, with a low of 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Relatively dry and stable conditions will prevail. However, pockets of moisture on the wind flow could trigger passing showers. Tonight will remain partly cloudy, with a continued 40% chance of brief showers. Winds are east at 13 to 28 kilometers per hour or 8 to 17 miles per hour. Seas are slight to moderate, ranging from 9 to 1.5 meters or 3 to 5 feet. The sun will set this evening at around 6:23 and rise tomorrow at approximately 6 o'clock. That brings us to the end of the Midday Major Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I am Jasmine Thomas. God bless you.